Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's RC Maxfield here for the Back to 12 podcast. And in today's video, there's quite a bit to discuss in Texas Tech athletics, including Ludvig Aberg going to the PGA Tour. We've got baseball in their destination for the NCAA Tournament, and Texas Tech football lands a much-needed depth DB via the portal. But if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to stay in the know on Texas Tech athletics all year long. The subscribe button's right there. We're giving you daily videos on Texas Tech football, basketball, everything to do with Texas Tech athletics. We've got you covered right here on the Back to 12 podcast channel. All right, let's jump into this. As again, we've mentioned it, he's a legend, and Ludvig Aberg just continues to prove it. And he got his full PGA Tour card. So for those that don't know how this works, this is not typical. Okay, there are ways that you have to do this. There are tournaments you have to win. There are achievements you have to get a full PGA Tour card. Sometimes you can get to certain events if you're coming out of college, but no, Ludvig Aberg will instead get his full PGA Tour card, and that's pretty sensational when you look at it. I mean, when it comes down to it, and you talk about Ludvig Aberg that played in his last Texas Tech University event for men's golf this past weekend, he truly is one of the greatest athletes that we've seen at Texas Tech. So to see him get his full player card for the PGA Tour where he can play on as many events as he wants next season, it's truly a remarkable accomplishment, and one that is more than well-deserved when it comes to Ludvig Aberg. Now moving on elsewhere in Texas Tech athletics, you've got baseball. And after that devastating collapse in the late innings of the semifinals against Oklahoma State, who beat you twice on Saturday, and then the Cowboys ended up losing to the Horned Frogs in the NCAA or in the Big 12 championship game, you didn't know where Texas Tech was going to go. It felt like they were going to be a 3 seed, but you didn't know if they'd be closer to, hey, one of those lower 3 seeds, or would they be one of the higher 3 seeds with their performance out in Arlington? Well, we found out yesterday on Memorial Day with the selection committee sending the Red Raiders out to Gainesville, Florida to face off against the UConn Huskies in the first round, or the first game of the NCAA tournament in the Gainesville Regional. It will be held by the University of Florida. The other team involved in this is Florida A&M. So from 1 to 4, you got Florida, UConn, Texas Tech, and Florida A&M. And the first pitch for this game for the UConn Huskies and Texas Tech Red Raiders is scheduled for Friday, June 2nd. You can watch it on ESPNU, and it is scheduled for a noon Eastern time first pitch. Okay, so when I look at this regional, right, and that's really what I want to talk about when I look at this, Florida is arguably the most talented team in the country. Like, if you look out in the next 5 to 7 years in Major League Baseball and you look back at this tournament and see, well, who had the most major leaguers on their roster in the baseball tournament, right? My money's probably on Florida. UConn, for a majority of the season, looked like they were going to host, right? They had a little, they fell apart a little bit at the end of the year. Maybe that's a little too harsh, but they've had a couple missteps, I probably should say, right? And now they're a 2 seed, and they are a very good 2 seed. And we know the pedigree Texas Tech has when it comes to the NCAA tournament and Coach Tadlock, right? Now, Florida A&M, they're not too bad either when it comes down to one of those lower level teams that gets in because they got their automatic bid, right? This is a very good regional. Obviously, if you had to have bets on it, Florida is the favorite to win it. But I want to hear from you guys. What is the most important aspect for Texas Tech baseball to go to the Super Regionals? I think I know what you're going to say. It might have to deal with that thing about 60 feet, 6 inches away. Maybe not. Who knows? Let me know down in the comments the biggest thing Texas Tech baseball has to do to win the regional down in Gainesville and move on to the Supers. All right, let's talk about Texas Tech football, as they got much needed help in their secondary. And the reason I say this is Rashad Williams went under the knife this past offseason to really just get everything done in terms of his sports hernia. He had sports hernia surgery, right? And so you look at what Texas Tech has in the secondary, and they have some good guys out there, right? You got Malik Dunlap, you got Rabbit, obviously, CJ Baskerville. You've got some good guys back there in the secondary, but the opposite corner of Malik Dunlap, they were kind of young when it came down to it. You got Maurice Horn, and then you got Jordan Sanford as well, who was a true freshman, and the latter of those two. So what do? They go out and get a guy that was highly productive in his time when he was healthy in D1 from Fresno State in Braylon Lux, 5'11", 170. He announced on Twitter that he would be transferring to Texas Tech for the upcoming season. And listen, when you look at him and what he did last year in 8 games when he was healthy, played a couple games where he was fighting through it. Let's just say that, right? In 8 games, he had 35 tackles. He also had 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, a pick, and 8 pass breakups, right? He's a solid corner, and you needed that depth there in the secondary just because, again, you're young there in Horn and Sanford, who don't have any D1 experience. Remember, Horn was redshirted last year, and Sanford is a legit true freshman. So you get a guy that's actually taken snaps at the D1 level to come in, and really, if Rayshad is healthy, he's going to be your corner on that side. But this is an insurance policy, and you can never have too many good DBs in that room when you play in the Big 12 or at the Power 5 level of D1 football, right? And Lux, I really liked what I saw on tape. I thought he played a little bit bigger than 5'11". I thought he had a really good job of an understanding of his lower half and how to use his hips and really get and cut off angles for a wide receiver. Now, he does struggle a little bit in terms of different aspects of it. I saw he had a couple of missed tackles, which was fine. But overall, I thought he was a sure tackler when I watched his tape. And now those are difficult to find when it comes to the transfer portal. Now, do I think he's going to come in and be, a all Big 12 type corner? No, I don't. But when he's out there, I do think he is going to be a solid contributor, not only in the secondary for Texas Tech, but if Rayshad is healthy, I think he could go in and be a pivotal guy when it comes to special teams as well and really help Texas Tech in multiple ways and multiple facets of the game. And again, you can never have too many guys in the secondary when it comes down to just good, reliable bodies. And that's not a knock on Horn or Sanford. It just comes down to you need some experience on the opposite side of Malik Dunlap, who is probably going to be one of the best corners in the Big 12, and you just want to have that insurance policy just in case it takes a couple more weeks than expected, maybe a month longer than expected for Rayshad Williams, and you don't want to rush him back. You want to have a guy like Rayshad Williams healthy as long as possible for the Red Raiders going into a really hyped season for Texas Tech football. So again, you look at this real quick. You got Ludvig Aberg. Hey, he's got his PGA Tour card in full. That is awesome. Like the video if you're excited for him on that front. Texas Tech baseball will head east and play in the Gainesville Regional. They are the 3 seed out there. They will face off against the UConn Huskies on Friday on ESPNU at noon. The number 1 overall seed in that regional is, of course, the Florida Gators, with the Florida A&M team coming in as the 4 seed. And then last but not least, Texas Tech football gets a much-needed insurance policy in the secondary as they get a commitment from Fresno State DB Braylon Lux, and he will play on the side opposite of Malik Dunlap, where Rayshad Williams is recovering from a sports hernia surgery injury. But that's going to do it for today's video. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button to stay in the know on Texas Tech athletics all year long right here on your one-stop shop for everything Texas Tech. Of course, I'm talking about the Back to 12 podcast channel.